So today we're talking about how do we maximize our communication channels. And Rebecca from Montana asked this question. With the whole plethora of social media apps, platforms, and channels out there, which one is the best to use for communication? And the guys at Bamboo are going to help answer that question.
Hey guys, not long ago, I was leaving my office with one of my coworkers, and we drove by. We're at a stoplight, and it was kind of a 4-point intersection there, and on the corner was a guy dressed up in a pickle suit who was advertising for a deli that was in our area. And it was about 10 a.m. or so. He's out there with his sign, he's ready to go, and he's just working it. He had like electric guitar, he's just going for it. And I got a little giggle out of it, went on to my meeting, came back. At the end of the day, it was about, 4 o'clock. Now, where we live here in Sacramento, it gets really hot. And it was about 105 that day. And when I came back to my office, the poor guy in the pickle suit, his guitar is on the ground, his head was down, and there was no movement, no joy, no passion. Anyway, I tell that story because oftentimes the approach and how we get our message out there is really just an event-based message, like on a billboard, hoping that anybody who sees it will see it and make a decision to come be a part of what we're doing. And so this question is actually a really important one. Because in this day and age, we've got all this technology that's available. We work in this business all the time, and it feels like we sometimes have a hard time just staying up to date with all the different platforms, technologies, and marketing tools that are out there. So what we hope to do in this video is kind of address what should you be thinking about, and what kinds of questions should we be asking ourselves when we're thinking about putting our message out on all of these platforms. So I think the first thing, we want to give you 3 questions to ask and make this real easy. I think the first thing you always have to consider is, who is your audience? Like, who are we talking about? In a church, you may go, we're trying to talk to everyone. And that can kind of be a point of tension, because you really do have to think about who is that core that you really want to communicate to. Maybe they're 20-somethings. If they're 20-somethings, then the platform that is native to that group is going to differ than if that group was 45 and up. Okay, so you first have to ask that question of who the audience is.
Yeah.
The second question is what we were talking about earlier. Where are they? So again, if it's 20-somethings, they're probably going to be on what?
Yeah, they're going to be on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram, Snapchat, something along those lines. Don't go and use Facebook just because everybody else is using Facebook and you think you have to use Facebook, and Facebook is the big popular thing. That may be the case, but it may not be popular with your audience. So once you identify who is your audience, then you ask yourself, where are they? Once you ask yourself where they are, you have to ask, how can we add value to them? This is a really big question. You want to riff on this a little bit?
Yeah, we were just talking, the comedian Michael Jr. has a good kind of philosophy that you should think about when you think about social media. And what he says was his big breakthrough, his big turning point was when, instead of asking himself, or instead of thinking about how can I get laughs, that's what you think a comedian is doing, is they go up on stage and they're trying to get laughs. What changed for him was going, instead of thinking how can I get laughs, he started thinking about how can I give people the opportunity to laugh. And I think social media is the same way. I think people put out a post with the intention of, I just want to get likes.
Yeah.
I want to get engagement. I want to get comments and all of that. But you're not really thinking about any way that you are trying to give people the opportunity to engage. You're not even inviting them in a lot of the time.
Right.
You're not asking them anything. You just push, come to this, do this, buy that.
Right.
And expecting people to engage with that. How do you engage with something that really all you want is for me to just consume it and give you what you want rather than have a conversation with you?
Yeah.
So I think that's really important, is think about what can you give them and add value to their lives in some way that's not just inviting them to an event. Give like crazy, and then people are going to be more than happy to come to whatever you want to. And then the other way to think about adding value is just think about what you or someone on your team is naturally good at. Whoever's going to be kind of owning social media, owning the content for it, that content creation is really hard.
Yeah.
So don't put yourself into a situation where you're trying to create content for a platform that you're not good at. So if you're just a terrible photographer, Instagram's probably not the place to start. If you're a really good writer, maybe just start blogging. Like, it doesn't really matter what the platform is, because if you just put out some great stuff on the one that's most appropriate, you're gonna see some better traction. Then you can figure out how to take your blog content and extend it to Twitter and to Instagram and stuff like that. But that's way down the road.
Yeah.
First things first, just what are you great at, and how can you use that to add value, and then what platform is most appropriate for the medium that you're great at.
Yeah, that's really good. I think a good rule of thumb, we tell a lot of people, find a ratio that works for you. Maybe you give 6 things before you ask for one. Maybe it's give 10 things before you ask for one. And what you can do is kind of look through your feeds and see how close are we to applying that ratio in our communications. Because like Dustin said, oftentimes we just use those social channels for amplification, and that is not the way to get people to really engage with what you're doing. I think I'd sum up all of this and just say one last thing. A lot of churches come to us and they go, man, it's just so stressful to have to do all the things we're doing now on top of everything else that we now have to consider in the world of social media. And what I would say is you don't have to adopt every single profile. What I would recommend, and there's a lot of thinking about this, but for most churches, I would just, like Dustin said, think about where you can add value on the most appropriate channels and do your very best to be as consistent as possible on those channels and do the best job that you can. There's so much to unpack on this topic, so if you guys have additional questions or thoughts about technology, social, mobile, whatever it may be, you can always reach us on Twitter. We're at FieldTheBoo. We'll make sure that gets up on the screen. And then you can always ask those questions here on the hashtag AskThrive. So pose any questions there. We'll be sure to do our best to answer them. We'll see you guys soon.